Garlic and vinegar really work. This is my actual experience after a year of using them. You need to know this. I lost almost half of my chickens in a single week. 1 week. And all because I didn't know something that I'm going to tell you today. What I discovered afterward completely changed the way I manage my farm. And if you have chickens or are thinking about getting them, this video can save you a lot of money, a lot of pain, and many tears. Today I'm going to tell you about my real experience. Without filters, without embellishments, with everything that went wrong and everything that went incredibly well, using two ingredients that you surely have in your kitchen right now: garlic and vinegar. Stay until the end because what I'm going to tell you in the last minutes of this video is what cost me the most to learn and what has cost many people the most to discover on their own. If this helps you, give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Here I talk about real farming, about what nobody tells you in books, about what is learned by getting your hands dirty and enduring the smell of the chicken coop in your clothes and in your soul. Let's start from the beginning. When I came to live in the countryside several years ago, I brought with me the romantic idea of having my own chickens. Fresh eggs every morning, healthy animals running free. A simpler life. What nobody told me is that raising chickens is a constant battle. It is love, yes, but it is also war. War against parasites, against diseases, against the stress of the coop, against one's own ignorance. My first chickens arrived in a cardboard box. Tiny, yellow, perfect. I cared for them as if they were my children. Clean water, balanced feed, space to move. But after a short time, I started to see things that worried me. Some looked dull. Others had feathers in poor condition. One of them started losing weight alarmingly. I went to the vet, I spent money, I bought medications, I spent more, and even then, I lost animals. It was frustrating at a level that I don't know if I can explain with words. Because when an animal is under your care, its death doesn't just feel like an economic loss. It feels like a personal failure. It was in that moment of desperation when a neighbor, a lady who had been raising chickens for more than 30 years, told me something that changed everything. She asked me how often I gave them garlic. Garlic. Just like it was the most normal thing in the world. She looked at me as if I had said something absurd when I told her I had never used it. And then she sat down with me, poured me a coffee, and started telling me what her mother had taught her, what her grandmother had taught her before, and what she had proven with her own eyes for decades. And that's where my true education on the farm began. The first thing I did was research. I don't like doing things blindly, so I searched, I read, I asked in forums, I talked to more people, and what I found surprised me because it wasn't just folk wisdom. There were studies, there was evidence, there were farmers from all over the world who had been using garlic as part of their natural chicken management for years. Garlic contains a compound called allicin. This compound is what gives garlic that strong and characteristic smell, but it is also what turns it into a powerful ally inside an animal's body. It has anti-parasitic, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory properties, and acts as a natural boost for the immune system. What does that mean in practical terms for your chickens? It means that garlic can help keep internal parasites like intestinal worms at bay, which are one of the most common and devastating problems in chicken coops. It means it can reduce the bacterial load within the digestive system. It means it can give your bird a natural resistance against common diseases. And best of all, it's cheap, it's accessible. You don't need a medical prescription. You don't need a truck with air conditioning to go to the city to buy it. But here comes the part that many people don't know, and that is important for you to understand well, so you don't make the mistake I made at the beginning. Garlic is not given just any way. I started by throwing chopped garlic into my chicken's water. I did it daily with a lot of enthusiasm, convinced that I was doing something great. And during the first weeks, it seemed to work, but then I noticed that some chickens started to reject the water. They didn't want to drink, and when a bird doesn't drink water, it dehydrates, and when it dehydrates, everything else falls apart. What I learned is that there is a correct concentration. It can't be too little or too much. Too much garlic in the water can be counterproductive. It can alter the taste of the water to the point that the animal simply doesn't want to drink, and it can also interfere with certain digestive processes if given in constant excess. The formula that worked for me after much adjustment and much observation was the following. 4 or 5 cloves of garlic crushed, not finely chopped, but simply crushed to release the allicin in 1 liter of water. Let that preparation sit for several hours before giving it to them, and do not give it every day permanently, but in cycles. 1 week on, 1 week off, or during periods of greater stress, when new birds arrive, when the weather changes, when there are outbreaks in the area. The result was notable. Not from one day to the next, let's be clear. This is not magic, this is a process. But over time, I saw more active chickens, with better color in their combs, with shinier feathers. And what impressed me the most, the mortality rate in my coop dropped significantly. Now let's talk about vinegar, because this is where the story gets even more interesting. Vinegar, specifically unfiltered apple cider vinegar, the one with that cloudy stuff floating at the bottom called the mother of vinegar, is another of those ancient remedies that science has been backing up little by little. What is apple cider vinegar used for in chickens? It serves mainly for two things: to improve digestive health and to create an internal environment in the bird that is hostile to certain parasites and bacteria. Apple cider vinegar helps to slightly acidify the digestive tract. This sounds technical, but in simple terms, it means it creates an environment where harmful microorganisms have more difficulty surviving and multiplying. At the same time, it favors the growth of beneficial bacteria, which translates into better nutrient absorption, better digestion, and a stronger immune system. There are also farmers who use it externally to clean the coop diluted in water, to control the growth of fungi and bacteria on surfaces, or to do a gentle wash on the legs of chickens that show symptoms of scaly leg mites. That disease caused by a mite that lives under the scales of the legs and is tremendously annoying for the animal. I used it both ways and saw results in both. In the water, the proportion I use is 1 tablespoon of unfiltered apple cider vinegar for every liter of clean water, no more. Not in metal containers, because the acid in the vinegar can react with the metal, and that is not good for anyone. Always in plastic or ceramic containers. And I alternate it with the garlic. I don't give them together all the time. I intersperse them. Sometimes garlic water, sometimes vinegar water, sometimes plain water to give the system a rest. This alternating combination has been, in my experience, much more effective than using just one constantly. But here I want to pause and tell you something important, because it would be irresponsible of me not to do so. Garlic and vinegar are powerful tools within an integral management of the farm. They are not a replacement for veterinary medicine when it is needed. If a bird is visibly sick, if it loses weight quickly, if it has severe respiratory symptoms, if there is mortality in the coop, you need a vet. What garlic and vinegar do very well is prevention, and prevention on any farm is worth more than 1,000 treatments. The most painful lesson I learned in my first year was that there is no remedy that cures what prevention would have avoided, and that lesson cost me animals. It cost me sleepless nights. It cost me money. It cost me that kind of sadness that only someone who has lost animals under their care understands. There is something else I want to tell you, something that almost nobody mentions when talking about these natural remedies. Stress. Stress is one of the factors that most weakens a chicken's immune system, and chickens get stressed more than people think. They get stressed when new animals arrive at the coop. They get stressed when the weather changes abruptly. They get stressed when there are predators nearby, even if they don't manage to get in. They get stressed when they don't have enough space, when there are very marked hierarchies and some harass others, when the coop doesn't have adequate ventilation. A stressed chicken is a vulnerable chicken, and a vulnerable chicken is a chicken that gets sick more easily, that produces fewer eggs, that loses weight. Garlic and vinegar within all this context work best when the rest of the management is also good. Clean water, quality feed, sufficient space, good ventilation, predator control, constant observation of each animal. The farm is not a system of separate parts. It is a whole. And when you treat only one aspect without seeing the whole, the results will always be limited. After a full year using garlic and vinegar systematically in my coop, I can tell you with total honesty what I observed. My chickens have fewer internal parasites than before. I know because I keep records, because I do periodic fecal analysis with the help of the vet, and the numbers speak for themselves. Egg production stabilized. Before, I had sharp peaks and drops that I didn't understand. Now production is much more even, more predictable, more reliable. Mortality in the co-op dropped considerably. I no longer lose animals for no apparent reason. When something happens, I have a much clearer idea of why, because the general state of my birds is better, and any deviation from normality is noticed faster. And my expenses on medications decreased notably. They didn't disappear because veterinary medicine is still part of the management, but I no longer spend on emergency treatments with the frequency I did before. Is it worth it? Absolutely yes. Is it easy? Not entirely. It requires consistency, observation, patience. It requires you to be willing to experiment with your own co-op, to adjust the proportions, to see how your specific animals react, because not all coops are the same and not all birds respond exactly the same. What I can guarantee you is this. If you start observing your chickens with more attention, if you start treating prevention as a priority and not as an afterthought, if you give your co-op the same seriousness you would give to any other project that truly matters to you, the results will surprise you. The farm teaches, it always teaches, but only if you are willing to listen. And listening on the farm means observing, it means getting your hands dirty, it means staying still next to the coop when you think something isn't right and not leaving until you understand what it is. That level of attention, that presence, is what separates someone who raises chickens from someone who truly cares for chickens. If you made it this far, you already know why I asked you to stay until the end. Because this last part is what cost me the most to learn. It wasn't the garlic, it wasn't the vinegar, it wasn't any recipe. It was understanding that the health of my animals depended primarily on my willingness to learn nonstop. And that is priceless. If this story changed the way you look at the natural remedies in your kitchen, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the history that they tried to bury. Let's plant the future together. The next treasure will be open soon. Take good care of your chickens.